I spend a lot of time in boardrooms briefing senior executives on AI, not junior teams and not tech enthusiasts. I'm talking about C-suite leaders, people who are running global operations, managing thousands of staff and making decisions that cost millions. And I can tell you this with complete confidence. Most of them don't know the difference between an LLM and RAG. They've heard the words, they nod in the right places, but they can't actually tell you what the words mean. Or more importantly, what the words mean for them. That's a problem, because the people who can't answer that question are making expensive decisions with incomplete information. So today, I'm going to fix that for you. We're going to discuss 4 concepts: LLMs, tokens, RAG, and MCP. In plain English, what they are and exactly what they mean for your career or your business. So let's go.
In a world full of noise, making the right choice can be hard. Uncle Gary, real advice, better decisions.
I have built my career making complex technology concepts easy to understand so that business leaders can make more effective and, frankly, more profitable decisions. I operate at that intersection of IT, AI strategy, and business leadership, and I've identified a recurring obstacle that spans every organizational tier. The biggest gap I see at every level is not a skills gap, it's a comprehension gap. People who understand how these technologies and these tools work, even conceptually, they make fundamentally better decisions than those who don't. They ask sharper questions, they challenge vendors, they spot where AI genuinely helps and where it's just expensive noise and marketing hype. People who don't understand them, well, they either over-trust the tool, believing it will do everything, or they avoid it entirely. Both are costly. You don't need to be an engineer here, but you do need to understand the engine. So the 4 concepts. Here we go. Concept 1, large language models, LLMs. An LLM is the brain behind every major AI tool you're using. Claude, ChatGPT, Gemini, Copilot, all of them. Here's the clearest way I can explain this. Imagine someone has read every book, every research paper, every article, every library book, every website ever published, billions of documents. Through that reading, they've developed a very sophisticated feel for language, how ideas are explained, how thoughts are structured, how they connect, how context shapes meaning, and even how a sentence should be started, how it should be formed, and how it should end. Now imagine that person can respond to any question in any format in seconds. That is an LLM. It is a model trained on an enormous body of text and knowledge that has been learned over the years. The LLM has learned to predict and generate language from all of that at a very high level. But here's what it is not. It is not thinking. It is not actually intelligent. It has no consciousness or no lived experience. It does not possess judgment as in the way that you and I have judgment. It is a very fast and very capable pattern engine. So what does this actually mean if you're an executive or a leader? What it means is that we need to treat it like a highly capable baby, one that needs clear direction, otherwise it will confidently get things wrong. The people who really get the most from AI are the ones who direct it well, not the ones who trust it blindly. Concept number 2, tokens. This is a quick one, but don't skip it. This one trips people up. So when an LLM processes text, it doesn't actually read word by word. It reads in chunks called tokens. A token is roughly 4 or 5 characters, letters. So a short word is 1 token, a longer word might be 2 or 3 tokens. So as an example, if I said, hello, how are you? The sentence would be broken up into 4 or 5 tokens. Hello is 1, how is 1, are is 1, you, question mark is another one. If it was caterpillar walks on the leaf, caterpillar would be broken into 2 separate tokens. Every AI model then has what's called a context window. This is an amount of working space where it remembers things being discussed. The context window size is what limits how many tokens it can hold and process at one time. Think of it as the model's active working memory. So here's an analogy. If you think of this as let's say an executive who's leading a flight crew and you're briefing the flight crew before they fly, that briefing capacity has a limit. If you give them too much information that they can actively work with in the cockpit at any time, with too much detail, then critical items get dropped or forgotten. It's the same with AI. Feed it a massive document, run a very long conversation, and it starts losing track of what was said earlier. The window fills up, the earlier context starts to drop off it drops off the end. So what's the point? Well, my point is, when you're working with AI on complex or lengthy tasks, be deliberate, break it up, feed it what it needs, not everything you have. Understanding token limits stops you from blaming a tool and thinking it's a tool problem when it's actually a usage issue. Concept number 3, RAG, Retrieval Augmented Generation. This one is where things get genuinely powerful. Out of the box, an LLM only knows what it was trained on. All of those articles and books and journals and websites it read when it was being trained initially had a specific date when it was trained. And anything that was written or created after that date is not known by the LLM. And critically, it doesn't know anything about your organization internally. It doesn't know anything about your product specifications, your internal policies, your processes, your standard operating procedures, etc. RAG changes that. So here's how I explain to executives. Think of a senior analyst or consultant who really knows your field well. They really know it deeply, but they don't have any of your internal reports or data on how you're doing. If you ask them a question, before they can answer you, they need to get your data about how you're doing with your environment, not a generic understanding of your industry. That's what RAG does. It does exactly that. Before the AI generates a response, it retrieves relevant information and documents from an external knowledge base, your data, your content, your context, and it grounds its answer in that material. So it blends what it knows with what you've just told it recently. This is how organizations building AI tools know how to get it to answer their questions in their specific environment, not generic responses. I'm talking about context-specific intelligence. That means if you're in any role that touches knowledge management, internal documentation, customer service, or operations, RAG is the content. It's the content that actually makes AI useful in your world. Understanding it means you can ask the right questions when someone proposes an AI solution to you. Does it use RAG? Where is the knowledge source you're going to RAG from? These are the questions that separate informed decision makers from spectators. Concept number 4, Model Context Protocol, MCP. This is the newest of the 4 and arguably one of the more significant shifts that's happened in AI. Until recently, an AI model was brilliant but isolated. It couldn't reason, it couldn't write, it couldn't advise. I mean, it could advise, but it couldn't act. It couldn't touch your systems or update your data. It couldn't trigger a workflow or interact with the tools that run your business. You used to ask it a question and it would give you back an answer. If you asked another question, it would return you another answer. It was the smartest person in the room with no hands. MCP is the architecture that gives it hands. So Model Context Protocol is a standardized framework that allows AI models to connect to external tools and systems and take real actions, browse the web, run code, update a record, trigger a process. If I was talking in aviation terms, we've moved from the co-pilot reading a checklist to the co-pilot being able to execute the checklist. This matters because it marks the shift from AI as a chatbot to AI as an agent, from a tool that responds to a tool that acts. This is a fundamental shift in what AI is capable of and how it integrates into your operations. The bottom line, organizations that understand MCP today are the ones designing AI strategies that won't be obsolete in 12 months. So for your business, your career, if you're in operations, technology, product, or any leadership, understanding what agentic AI enables is no longer optional background knowledge. It is a strategic baseline. It's the AI literacy that will rival the importance of financial literacy. You'll need them both if you are to be a business leader. So what does this actually mean for you? Let me word it in a career sense. To bring it together simply, LLMs are the brain. They're powerful, they're pattern-driven, but they need direction. Tokens are the memory limit. They're finite, and you work with them, not against them. RAG is the knowledge layer. It gives AI your context, the world it's operating in. And MCP are the hands. This moves AI from advice to action. So to close off, here's what I want you to consider. Having briefed executives at the highest levels of global organizations on these concepts, the ones who walk out of those sessions with even a foundational understanding make better vendor decisions, make better organizational decisions, and ultimately better business decisions. They ask better questions. They lead AI adoption with clarity instead of delegating it away because it feels too technical. The ones who don't understand it end up signing off on projects they don't understand, built on assumptions that nobody challenged. So you don't need to personally build these systems, but you do need to be fluent enough to evaluate them. You need to be fluent enough to lead your teams that enhance your systems and hold others accountable for how these systems are being used. Now, I've seen this pattern play out at global scale. The gap between people who understand AI and the people who don't is beginning to look a lot like the gap between executives who understood digital transformation in 2005 and those who dismissed it as just an IT problem. We know how that story ended. To name a few, Kodak, BlackBerry, Nokia, Borders bookstores. These companies thought IT was just a cost center, and frankly, they seriously misunderstood the nature of digital transformation, and it led to disastrous consequences for their businesses and their shareholders. This is your opportunity to be on the right side of it. Not through hype, not through fear, through understanding. So here's my call to action for you. If this gives you clarity, share it with someone who needs it, a colleague, your manager, your teams, anyone who's working with AI that you feel may benefit if they're not completely sure of what these words mean. And if you want more practical and experience-driven guidance on building a future-ready and AI-ready career for yourself, subscribe. There's going to be more coming, and I'll see you in the next one.